Rockaways Productions presents The Casey Waters Show, episode 482, The Family, part 2. Hello, I'm your host, Casey Waters. Today, I will continue with The Family. Here, I look at how we have so much in common that, in a sense, we're all one big family, and how thinking that way helps you with compassion, empathy, cooperation, and other things. Later on, it's the Impressionist mold. Here, I look at, how we try to impress people and why, and how this could get us, how it could create problems for us sometimes. Today's show will feature background footage from Sam's Knob. Sam's Knob is located near the Blue Ridge Parkway. To get there, take the Blue Ridge Parkway south, heading out of Asheville, North Carolina. Go past Mount Pisgah and keep going past US 276. Eventually, maybe 5 or 10 miles past US 276, there's a road going off to the right. That road takes you to Sam's Knob. At the end of the road, you park, and Sam's Knob Trail goes off to the left. However, there are 4 trails that go off from this parking lot, so make sure you're on the right one. So now, let's continue with the family. For if we're in a virtual reality type setup, if we're creating reality with our consciousness, and in a sense we're like living in the Matrix or something like that, our reality is almost like a dream. Sure. But why are we going through all this? What's the purpose of it? Reality not even being real, but simply created by our perception. Well, perhaps this is all to test our motivation and our values, and perhaps specific values more than others, such as compassion and empathy and love, faith, hope, and so forth. Well, perhaps these values, these feelings, these ways of seeing things and doing things, perhaps they're more important than we realize. And perhaps that's why we're being tested, so to speak, in a virtual reality. We call it reality, but we're creating it as we see it. Something is overhead, seeing us, watching our very move, our every move, and perhaps listening to our thoughts along the way, analyzing our consciousness to figure out, how do we value things? What's our motivation? Do we have compassion? Do we have empathy? Or are we more concerned about Impressionism? Impressionism. Look, I'm redefining the term. I'm not talking about art or painting. No. Because I am autistic, I feel I have the right to redefine certain words that already have a definition and even make up new words. Sure, why not? So, Impressionism here, in my autistic sense, means the idea or the art of impressing people by making a good impression on them. Dress for success, for example. You wear the perfect suit for the interview for the perfect job because you are perfect. You're trying to make a good impression, and perhaps you're not that perfect. Perhaps your suit is more perfect than you are. That is often the case. We try to make a good impression. We try to make ourselves look better than we really are. Where did the term originate? It originated, well, a long time ago, perhaps when I was 7 years old, watching my mom cleaning the house, getting ready for a party. The only problem is time is running out and the job is not going to be finished. My mom, in the distant past, like me, in the present, well, we're both very busy. A lot going on. Too much going on. You can't even finish cleaning to get ready for your party. But you can halfway clean. Just enough to make things look good. Maybe not totally, absolutely clean, but kind of looking clean. To make a good impression. Impressionism. Trying to clean so things look good, but perhaps they're not clean. That's impressionist cleaning. And there's impressionist all sorts of stuff. Sure. Impressionist dressing to make a good impression for the boss or for your date. So, it all seems a little pretentious, and I guess it really is. It just seems a little shallow and a little ephemeral. Your whole life striving to make a good impression and always thinking about how others see you. Well, I say, at least to a large degree, who cares? It's up to you. It's how you see yourself that defines your reality and your emotional and psychological state of mind. In other words, if you're so caught up in impressing other people and worried about what they think of you, well, you can't read their mind. You have to guess or talk to them. And it's kind of out of your control what they think of you. I mean, you might try to do your best to impress them, but what do they do with that? How do they interpret it? What does it mean to them? What do they decide to do about you? Well, that's kind of out of your control. You could do your best to sway things your way, but it's ultimately someone else's decision whether to hire or fire you, or invite you to the party. Or if you're the host of the party, well, what do they think about your party? Well, you could do your best to be a good host and have a clean house, but they still might not think it was a good party, even though you thought it was. On the other hand, if things didn't work out quite right and your house was a little messy, but everyone had a lot of fun, well, perhaps people will remember the fun more than the messy house. Who knows? But the thing is, when we hang so much stock on what other people think of us, well, then they are in control of our emotions and our lives, our mental well-being, how we see ourselves, how we fit in. It's all dependent on them and what they think of us. And we only could influence that to a limited degree. And because of that, we get anxiety. We don't need anxiety. Anxiety creates stress and can lead to depression and other conditions. How do we fight it? Well, we fight it by being true to ourselves. And a good way to be true to yourself is to realize that it's only your interpretation that matters, not what other people think, not what other people think of you. Flee on that. It's what you think of you that matters. It's your impression of yourself. Sure, what other people think of you really, in a lot of ways, isn't that important. It's what you think of yourself, even in adverse conditions. In other words, you could strive to get a good job but not obtain it, and still obtain a lousy job, and that's all you could come up with. Sounds familiar? Because it happened to me. Sure. But do I let that get me depressed? Well, I guess I did a little bit. Perhaps thinking of what other people thought of me, and thinking they think of less of me because I have a lesser job. But then I realized it's all in my head, and it's what I think of me that's the most important. And I realized I tried my best and couldn't quite do it, and that's good enough for me. I tried to get a good job and it didn't work out, but that's okay, for I am still me. I still have my values and my opinions and my ways of seeing things. And there's a lot of wonderful stuff to all of that, to who I am. And if I don't have a good job, oh well, it doesn't have to make me depressed. Just because I don't have a lot of money or whatever, I still have my friends. I still have my hobbies. I still have my ways of seeing things. And that's important, to buck the trend instead of going along with everyone else and trying to impress them. Well, set my own standards and impress myself according to what I do and how I see it, not how other people see it. Create my own standards of accomplishment, my own goals to obtain. And if they're not the same of what other people think I should do, well, that's okay. If I fall short, if I can't quite do it, that's okay. I'm still myself. I still have my wonderful values, my wonderful ways of seeing things, and my friends. And a lot of this wonderful ways of seeing things is being able to realize it's all you and not worry too much about what other people think of you. For it's what you think of yourself that's the most important. So we move along. We have to have compassion and empathy and cooperation. Well, perhaps this is what that test is all about. Us living in a virtual reality of sorts. Our perception creating our reality. Our consciousness creating our reality. Well, I guess it happens with everyone, of course. But why? Well, perhaps it's to test our compassion and our cooperation and our empathy and our love for each other. Perhaps that's more important than hatred and divisiveness and trying to cheat each other. Perhaps we need to cooperate more and deceive less, help each other more, instead of trying to deceive each other to gain an advantage. Share the advantage with everybody, and thus you have a less advantage for yourself. Well, maybe, maybe not. Perhaps it might seem that way at first, but in reality, it might not be that way. For sometimes when you have an advantage over others, even if it's lots of money, and you have way more money than everyone else, well, that still doesn't guarantee you're going to have a good time. Now, does it? And it still doesn't guarantee you'll have friends or be loved or appreciated. It's who you are, how you see things, how you perceive things, your values, your motivations that determines how much you are loved and appreciated by others, and how many friends you have, and how much enjoyment they get out of your company. It's not how much money you have. No, it's who you are, how you see things, how you see your friends, how everyone fits together, and how you work with them and help them and cooperate with them, perhaps building friendships that way. All of this is very important, and all of it perhaps is being watched by God or by other advanced beings. Perhaps those who set us up in this kind of virtual reality world where our consciousness creates reality. Well, of course, we have to have tolerance and acceptance of all religions. Sure, it's a lot better that way if we have tolerance. Well, who's to say which religion is truly right in the eyes of God? We don't know God's mysterious ways. Well, we only could guess what we think God likes or wants and what God doesn't want. We have to just do our best. But tolerating and accepting other religions and other moral viewpoints, we don't have to accept them as correct. We just have to accept them as valid in someone else's eyes, just as they should accept that our viewpoint of religion is acceptable in their eyes. We would want them to see our religion as valid, so we have to see their religion as valid. If we don't see their religion as valid, well, they probably won't see our religion as valid. It will just lead to divisiveness, to everyone thinking that only their one religion is accepted and worthy of God, and all other religions fall short. Well, that's simply not true. At least I don't think so. I think God is big enough to accept many religions and many viewpoints. And in a sense, they're all valid. They're all a reflection of God and how God sees things and does things. So we have to strive to that, to try to have our values the same as God's values, to do things the way God would do them. How do we do that? Well, according to me, we do soul searching and use our intuition. We do what's work best. We do what works best for ourselves and for others. We try to help other people. Sure. And, well, that's what we need to look at. And so that should be like our foundation to help people and to have empathy and compassion. And we build our beliefs up from that. So we must cooperate and have empathy. This is important. We could use this to lift each other up, to help each other. It will work better than trying to compete against each other and cutting each other down. We could get further with cooperation than competition. More people do better with cooperation than having competition and a few people succeed while everyone else's fails. If we cooperate, well, everyone could have a degree of success. And then there's religion. We have to tolerate religion, tolerate other religions, and accept them, not in the sense that they're true, but at least that they might be true. Who's to say what God thinks? Does God think one religion is valid or many? I think God thinks many religions are valid. Perhaps all religions are valid. Certainly, at least in my opinion, it's not just one religion goes to heaven and everyone else from other religions don't go to heaven because they're not from the right religion. No. In my opinion, that's not true. So because of that, we need to accept each other, accept other people's religious viewpoints, and tolerate it. They have the right to see things the way they see them. Just like you have the right to see things the way you do. You should tolerate and accept them, and they should tolerate and accept you. And then there's food. Sure. Food and money. Is there enough to go around for everyone in the world? Well, actually, there is. If things were distributed properly. It's not there's a food shortage in the world, there's a distribution shortage. A lot of food is wasted, where if it was distributed to the people who need it, well, then perhaps everyone could be fed. But we don't put enough effort into distributing the food and making sure everyone gets it. We don't put enough importance on it. For we believe some people are more important than others. I guess it's what it boils down to, at least, and the people who have more wealth and power and who are able to control food distribution, well, perhaps they don't distribute it to everybody because they think everyone is not worthy. And perhaps they want fewer people on the planet because only the worthy should survive. Some wealthy people really think that way. And the wealthier they are, often the more skewed to the right, the more ultra-conservative they often are, and the more prejudiced. People who are moderately wealthy are often liberal, compassionate, tolerant, and logical. These people, if in charge, would distribute the food to everyone. But the people who are really in charge, the ultra-wealthy, would typically, they're much more conservative. And because of that, they perhaps see themselves as superior because they were able to concentrate their ultra wealth and other people as inferior. Of course, they might have used undue influencing or cheating in some ways or another to gain their wealth, but a lot of times that's acceptable to them. And, well, perhaps certain people shouldn't survive in their viewpoints. And perhaps that's why food isn't distributed to everyone on the planet. And same with money. Because some people deserve to suffer, I guess is the way the ultra wealthy see it. The people who are really in control. So we have to get them to change their viewpoint, to realize that everybody is worthy. Everyone deserves money. Everyone deserves food. And perhaps by doing that, it will make it better for everyone, even the ultra wealthy. But perhaps they're just so shallow and opinionated, they just can't see that might be true, that could be true, that having everyone have money and food and everyone being on a more equal footing, well, maybe that's the best way to do things. A rising tide lifts all boats. By helping out poor people, well, ultimately, they might help us. And so everyone could do better if we just help each other out. Perhaps that's the real lesson to be learned. Perhaps that's why we are in this virtual reality game, so to speak, where our perception creates reality, to test how much we will cooperate, how much we will lift each other up and make things better for each other, how far we will advance as a society to making sure everyone is happy and okay. We have a long ways to go, but we could do it because we are the family. Now, it is time for the Impressionist Casey Waters Show. Producer Casey Waters. Graphic editing Judson Laird. Please note our new email address, CaseyWaters2 @CaseyWaters.com.